Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 82nd lesson of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we will set up the function that will calculate our overall job satisfaction. This is the first of two sort of meta statistics we'll be using in this series. That said, fire up your editor and let's get started. Hey everyone, so in this video what we're going to do is we're going to work on our first meta statistic, which will be our job satisfaction. And what I mean by meta statistic is that it will rely on the statistics we've calculated for other unit statuses. Now we've kind of already done this with our fear status, except for we're going to use all our major stats outside of happiness. Happiness will be made using job satisfaction as well as the other statistics. Now I recommend when you want to test this out that you delete every character except for one, and I would not use the support unit as your test. I've been testing using my engineering unit. So the first thing we want to do is we want to pop open our unit master controller, and we're going to get rid of this decreased fear. All right, and then we're going to quickly put these into categories. So we're going to put this into stat fear, same with this one, and same with this one. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to create a new function, and this will be set job satisfaction. God knows I'm probably spelling that wrong, but that doesn't matter too much. Now, this is going to work the same way our fear increase and decrease both work, except for we're going to do the increase and decrease in one function. So we're going to look at a little bit of a polymorphic approach to this. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a branch, and we're going to check our unit's health. If they are injured, we are going to decrease the job satisfaction modifier, which we'll create a variable for in a minute. And if they're not hurt, we'll increase the job satisfaction modifier. So what we want to do first to set this up is get our unit reference, sorry, not control reference, and we want to get current health. I'm going to put a reroute into this, which again, you don't need to do. I just like having reroutes. And then it'll be our max health. We are going to check, is our current health less than our max health? And remember, even though we're using floats, we've done 100 for our max, and our current, I believe, is 75 to start with. So this will return true to begin with. So they're going to return injured. So when you test this out, I do recommend setting all the sort of health to 1 or 100, setting your fear to 0, setting your fatigue and hunger to 0, and then changing those values to make sure that the branches work the way you want them to work. Now again, the numbers I'm going to be using are just for testing. When you make your own game, you are going to need to fine-tune these numbers to achieve the effects you want. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues. As some people have already noted, you're running into loops where fatigue and hunger are increasing too quickly, so you get into a loop of they go to sleep, then they need to eat, then they need to go to sleep again. That is why you have to change the numbers to match what you want to do. All right, let's create a new variable, and this will be our job satisfaction modifier. This will be of type float. And before I get too much further into this, we're just going to put this into status job sat. And we're going to do the same for this one up here, status job sat. All right, we're going to set this on the true and on the false, except for the calculations we'll use will be different. Actually, they'll come from the same thing. We're going to start with the true part first. So we're going to be decreasing our job satisfaction modifier on the true and increasing it on the false in this case. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of this again. We are going to duplicate it. If it'll let me duplicate it. I'm not sure why it didn't there. There we go. And we're just going to flop around the current health with the max health. And we are going to divide these two values, which will give us the proportion of our injury, so to speak. We are then going to multiply this value by 10, just like we did inside of our fear modifier, or divide this value by 10, not multiply. Sorry about that. Now, this will return a positive number. What we want to have happen is if the unit is injured, we want this to be a negative number. So we can take this positive value and just plug it into there. The equivalent negative value will be our job satisfaction modifier if they are hurt. So what we'll do is multiply float by float, and we'll multiply it by -1, which will make this a negative value. So we're going to take that current value that's coming out here and make it negative if they're hurt. And actually, we're going to do one more thing down here, so I shouldn't have plugged that in. We are going to, because if this is 1, we aren't going to get anything that's useful here. So instead, what we'll do is we'll come off of here and we'll do a float plus float. We're going to plug that return value into there. And we're going to add in 2 more pins. Now, I'm going to leave this pin blank for a moment, and I'm going to have you test it out and see what we might want to do there and why we have a 3rd pin. So having it as 0 is just like having 2 pins, but again, we're going to come back and we're going to change this in a moment. We are going to take, also this is wrong too. We are going to do one more thing that I skipped for both of these. We need a float plus float for this as well. So what we need to do is we need to take these values and add in our current job satisfaction modifier. Same down here, add in the current job satisfaction modifier. This one's correct, this one's missing something, and I want you to think about what it's missing and why it matters. If you don't know yet, run a math test on this. Plug in different numbers for the current health, and then leave max health at 100. See what happens down here. All right, next, we are going to have another branch. This one will handle our fatigue. Just going to plug a reroute into there and go directly down into there. And in our fatigue, well, we're not going to use our critical value or something just under our critical value like we did with fear. We're going to use our base I'm ready to go to sleep value, which if you don't remember, go to your services, pop open your unit status, and if we go to our check fatigue levels, our base is 50%, 0.5. So that's the number we're going to use. We're going to get our unit reference. We are going to get our fatigue. And we are going to check, is our fatigue equal to or greater than 0.5? I just typed that in incorrectly. There we go, 0.5. All right, plug that into there. If this is the case, then we are going to take everything we just did over here and repeat it over here. So to save ourselves some time, let's just highlight everything, including the reroutes, and Control W it here. And I'm just going to move this so it lines up a bit better. I believe that's correct. Sorry for the random sound effect of me gasping, squealing, or whatever the heck you want to call that. There we go. We need to move out a little bit further. Line that back up. Come off the false. Plug into here. Now, all we need to do is change this to 4. So we're going to divide it by quarters for the hour. We can get rid of this bit here, actually. So we don't need this divide by 10 anymore. And we can plug directly into there. Also, we don't need the rewrite. Actually, I don't know why I just did that, because all I'm going to do in a second is copy that over, plug that into there, get rid of our max health, and move this up. So, we take our fatigue levels. If we are greater than our 0.5, we divide that by 4, we make it a negative value, we add it to our job satisfaction modifier. If we are under 50%, we take this value and we add it into our modifier without making it a negative number, thus increasing the modifier here instead of decreasing it. Next, before I go forward to the next part, why aren't we doing a minus here? Well, a negative number minus will result in a plus. You could just change it all around so you don't have to worry about the negative number, just make this a minus. I like ensuring that it's a negative number. Next, we're going to check our unit's hunger level. And again, we're going to use a different number. We're going to use the number 0.75 just because I think it's more interesting to have different numbers just for testing purposes. Again, when you set your game up, the numbers we're going to use here, you need to fine-tune for the effect you want to achieve. These numbers are not the end-all be-all numbers, and they should not be treated as such. These are purely for testing purposes. So 0.75. And that is something that only you can decide when you're balancing your game, what that 0.75 should be, what that divide should be, what that 0.5 should be, what the critical values are. You have to decide this on your own. No tutorial can tell you what numbers work. You have to test different numbers to get the results you want. All right, now we can, again, cheat and copy all of this over and paste it into here. Plug that into the true. I missed the reroute this time, unfortunately. Plug that into the false. Put the reroute in if you want one. And nothing in this needs to change. We are going to take our... Well, actually, we need to change fatigue over to hunger. So copy that in. Remove the fatigue. There we go. We take our fatigue value. We quarter it. We make it a negative number if this is true. So if they're above that 0.75. And we decrease, because this is a negative, we decrease our job satisfaction. If they're below this value, we increase their job satisfaction. Again, think about what is going on here, why we might want another value in here. In fact, whatever we plug in here today, we might come back to in a later video and change it for our hunger and fatigue. All right, so now that we've taken care of our fatigue, hunger, and health, well, we need to take care of our fear levels. And our fear levels will increase our negative feelings towards our job satisfaction. So we're going to plug that into there. And what we're going to do for this one is we're going to, again, get our unit reference. And we are going to get our fear. And we want to know, is our fear greater than our resilience level? So if it's greater than our resilience level, then we will decrease our fear modifier. If it's equal to or less than, then we will... if it's greater than our resilience, if our fear is greater than our resilience, we will decrease our job satisfaction modifier. If our fear is equal to or less than our resilience, then we will increase our job satisfaction modifier. And again, what we're going to do for this one is we are going to, once more, take all of this. And in fact, I'm not going to copy the unit reference or the fatigue. And we're going to paste that into there. Or Control W it in like I just did, not paste. So duplicate and plug all of that in. And I'm just going to move it a bit closer. And we'll take our fear and job. Our fear and unit reference, not job. I'm not sure why I said job. And move it into here. Now, I'd be happy if this would let me move it. There we go. Plug that into there. Again, we're quartering it, making it a negative if their fear is greater than resilience. If it is not, then we're just adding it in. Finally, the unique one. I said in an earlier video that our units are only going to be really happy if they're doing their jobs. So what we need to do here is check, is our unit doing its job? And we already have a Boolean value for this set up, oddly enough. Get our unit reference, get isBusy. Now, unlike the other ones where we've had to do checks against floats or values we've hard-coded in, this one, we just use this bool value. And we can get away with this because this function will be running on a timer. Because it's running on a timer, every time this is true, it will increase, if true, or decrease our value if false. This one's going to be a bit different. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this to begin with. We are going to duplicate it over here, but we're not going to plug it in right away. Instead, we're going to take this value here, and we are going to get rid of it. We're just going to do a float plus float real quick. Plug that into there, that into there. We're going to take this out of it and move it to the top. So our true, if they are busy, is going to increase their job satisfaction modifier instead of decreasing it. And we're going to plug that into the true. And we're going to clean this up a bit now. Actually, we'll take all of this and clean it up a bit. Move that there. I'm going to break that for a moment, and then we'll clean it back up in a second. In fact, actually, we'll do is plug that up there. Plug this down here. And then put our reroute back in. Plug that into there. So we are now decreasing our job satisfaction modifier if they can't do their job. Put the reroute in. And now we need to consider what goes into here that will work. Well, we're going to create a variable that we've seen before, except for we're doing it now for our job satisfaction, which will be delta job sat. So change in job satisfaction. We're going to put this in our job sat folder or category, and we're going to set this value to 0.25, so 25%. And we are going to add that into there. And there we go. So our delta job sat divided by, so the change in the job satisfaction quartered, added into the current job satisfaction, added into here. Or if they're not doing their job, that change made a negative number after being quartered and added or removed from their current job satisfaction. In fact, however, there's a small problem with this. We're just going to reverse these pins here. Otherwise, you could run into issues depending on what numbers you use with the math setup there. All right, that takes us through setting up the meta part of it. We're taking from all our major variables and statistics related to our unit. Finally, what we need to do is we need to want to ensure that this number, if we want to make sure that the number is a certain value, doesn't go over that value. So we're going to put a branch in again. And we did the same thing in our fear variable, or our modified fear variables. But this one's going to be handled a bit differently because this is both negative and positive increases. We're going to take our job satisfaction. We want to know, is it equal to or greater than 4? If it is, then we just want to set it to 4 on the true. So grab your job satisfaction modifier and set it to 4. Now the major difference is before we've been going around on the falses, just like here and here. Same in the fear modifier, we run around and just continued on. Here, because a number, it can be a negative value, what we're also going to do is do another branch, and we are going to get our job satisfaction modifier, and we want to know, is it less than or equal to negative 4? And we're going to plug that into there. And just move this a bit closer, all of it, that is. And if it is less than or equal to negative 4, we want to duplicate this value down here. And we want to set this to negative 4. It is this false that we want to pull off of and continue on with in a moment. So the next thing we need to do before we can actually start pulling off of the things and lining them up properly is we need to get our unit reference, and we need to set our job satisfaction. And we'll take care of everything that goes into that addition for the float there in a moment. But let's just plug everything into the executes first here. So if this is true, we just go on, set it to 4, continue on to set our job satisfaction. If it is false, we check, is it less than or equal to negative 4? If it is, then we set it to negative 4 and carry on. If not, so if it's between 4 and negative 4, which is what this is saying, we're going to go on and continue over past setting it to negative 4 and go straight into setting our job satisfaction. And just to make this easier, instead of plugging into that reroute on the top line there, I'm just going to go around here and plug into there. All right, now we need to set our job satisfaction. And what we're going to do for this is we're going to take this unit reference. We're just going to move it along a tiny bit. Put a couple of reroutes in. There we go. Line those all up. And we're going to get our current job satisfaction. And we are going to add that. So float plus float. I'm just going to put in this lower pin to something else. And it's going to be very similar to what we did with our fear modifiers. So with all that in place, before we actually get into there, let's just get this return value handled. And we're going to use the same setup we have for everything but health. we're clamping this at between 0 and 1, where 1 is 100% and 0 is 0. So we're using proportions again. Now, just like before, we're going to take our delta job satisfaction. We are going to multiply this by our modifier. So this will either be a positive number, the modifier, or a negative number. And we want to take this value, we want to divide it over an hour. So we're going to divide float by float, and we're just going to plug 60 into here. We're going to take that value and plug it into there. Now, because we do not have the UI part of this set up yet, for testing purposes, what you can do, because this is on a loop, when we set up the loop, is we're going to do a print string. We're going to get our unit reference. And that's the other reason why I recommend only doing this with one unit. We are going to pull off this unit and get job satisfaction. We're going to plug that into there. There we go. Now, all we need to do is call this function up. So we've made the function, now we need to call it. So go to your event graph, and hey, look, we have 2 spots here. One will be job satisfaction. Give you a guess what number 4 will be. And this one's going to be a lot different. We could create a function, and probably we will, but all I'm going to do for now is do set timer by function name. It'd be useful if I spelled name correctly. Again, this is looping. It is going to be called set job satisfaction. I'm just going to copy and paste the name in. There we go. And our timer is going to be set, or our time is going to be set by our set timer speed there. And that will take care of it. Now, for testing purposes, before we fix up that problem I was talking about, why we have that extra plus in there, what we're going to do is we're going to delete every unit except for that engineer. So grab your harvester, grab that support unit, and grab that infantry unit, and go ahead and delete them for now. All right. Now, before we go any further forward, let's go to our units folder. Let's go to our unit master, and we're going to set our stats real quick. Our current health will go to 100. Be helpful if I hit enter instead. Our fatigue will set to 0. Our hunger will set to 0. And our fear is already 0. Job satisfaction, we'll leave at 0 for now. And let's hit play. All right, notice it's increased slightly. It's increased slightly again. What we're going to do is actually going to end that for a moment. We're going to come back in here for just a moment, and we are going to add a breakpoint at the start of our job satisfaction. Let's hit play again, and let's wait for that breakpoint to trigger. There it is. There's that trigger, and let's step through. This should return false. It does. Value that it's adding in is 0, 0. Let's step out one more. So if you have 0.1 or something similar, that's good. If you have 0, which is something that can come up, this is why we have that extra part in. We'll take care of that in a moment. Let's continue on through this. So we're going to see that 0.1 because we're on that current step. Let's go one forward. Let's go back and check that. So there's that increase. There's our hunger. We should be below that. And again, same values we saw a second ago. So come back. And then we continue on. They are not afraid. So our number should be increasing again. This is just our bIsBusy. Come back here for a moment. However, notice that these numbers haven't been increasing. Despite adding in our job satisfaction modifier, for some reason there's been no increase. And that's part of what I was getting at why we had that third one. This will decrease our modifier there. So if we go forward 1, we should see this is now a lower number. It is. And it's going to set it. So what we can do for these ones where we have 3 pins, once autosave is done, is we can take our delta job there. We can plug it directly in, but I don't like doing it that way. Instead, what I want to do is I want to take this value and divide it by, well, 60. I don't know why I started typing in 60 yet. All right, so we're going to take that, and we're just going to plug that into there, move that in closer, Control W, plug that into there, move it closer, Control W, plug it into there, again, move closer. And you can see that a lot of this is repetition. All right, I think that's our health one. Yeah, it is. So we now have it set up correctly. Again, we might come in and change some of those numbers down the road, except for our job modifier here. We might change how these are set up and how our health is set up to get different values. Again, you can play with the math to balance this the way that you need it to balance for your game. Let's hit play real quick. We're going to hit that breakpoint. I forgot to remove it. I'm just going to move this off screen for a moment. Actually, let's up through this once. So, again, we're going to come down here. This should be 0 right now. Go forward 1, come back, and it's 1.04. Again, this should be 1.04. Go forward 1, come back here, and it's now increased to 1.09. There should be 1.09 right now. Step forward 1, then go back. 1.11, or sorry, 0.11. Hopefully I've been saying that right the entire time. 0.11, step forward. All right, let's just go through the #IsBusy, come back. 0.117. So it has increased a tiny bit. And now it's going to decrease again. Again, this will be 0.117. Step forward 1. 0.055. All right, and then we go through here. We are going to go through that false branch, and we're just going to set our job satisfaction. Now, before going any farther forward, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, remove this breakpoint, and then drag this back onto screen, hit play, and we'll see the number goes up. Let's move the unit to repair this building here, and we'll see it increases faster. In fact, I'm going to speed that up a bit. And we can see the number is increasing, and it's, when I say increasing faster, I don't mean just as the timer. The number is getting larger each time because they are doing their job, and all the other values haven't hit the critical points yet. So we see that our timer is increasing, or our job satisfaction is increasing. Now what we need to do is test its decrease. So let's go to our unit, grab your job satisfaction, set this to 1. I'm going to set my hunger to 0.5, because below the 0.75 I set for it. My fatigue to Actually, I lied. I'm going to set my hunger to 0.75. My fatigue to 0.5, which means I'm going to need to quickly grab my unit at the start to send it to do a job. Otherwise, we're going to run into an issue. I'm going to set my fear to 0.2, and hopefully this doesn't trigger them being afraid. Actually, we're going to change one more variable for this test. We're going to set our health to 1. This will make it obvious how fast it can change based on our settings. All right, again, quickly grab that. Oh, man, I got in there before I could do anything. All right, release that unit. Grab them. All right, 0.95, 0.93, 0.91. So our timer is decreasing. In fact, I'm just going to let them run around for a bit instead of giving them up off the #IsBusy. 0.85. I didn't say you can go do anything. As you can see, the timer will continue to decrease when their fear is increased and they are hungry. Do your job. I think we've hit the critical point for one of the values. But you can see our timer is also decreasing. So this takes us through what we need to do for our job satisfaction in terms of setting it up. In the next video, we'll take care of the UI for it, so we can see that on the UI element here. And we will take care of in later videos, we'll take care of setting up the effects if they are not satisfied with their jobs, which there won't be actually any direct effect, but it will affect their overall happiness, which will have a direct effect on the unit's behaviors. All right, all of that said, if you've enjoyed this lesson or any of the videos in the series, go ahead and hit that like button down below. It helps this channel out. And if you want to help the channel further, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Also, if you want to know when that next video is out so you don't miss it, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon so you know when that lesson is out. And, as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.